I never thought a dumb joke could turn into something that would mess with my head for weeks. But there I was, standing in the middle of my living room, trying not to replay what had just happened like it was some kind of weird daydream. You know the kind where your brain refuses to accept it actually went down? Okay, let me back up a little so this doesn't sound completely insane. I'm Alex. I live in this tiny but decent one-bedroom apartment in the city, work a pretty normal 9-to-5 job in IT, and honestly, my social life is whatever you'd expect from someone who's more into video games and Netflix than bar hopping. Until recently, I hadn't really dated anyone seriously in a long time. College was a mess, and after that, I just didn't have the energy or confidence to dive back into the scene. Enter Ryan. Ryan's this guy I've known for a couple of years, mostly through a group of friends we both share from work and some meetup events. He's the kind of person who's loud and funny in a way that makes you want to roll your eyes, but also crack up at the same time. Tall, a little scruffy around the edges, and with these deep brown eyes that somehow make every dumb thing he says seem way more charming than it should. We'd always had this easygoing vibe. Nothing serious, just a lot of banter and hanging out in groups. Nothing that would even hint at me thinking he might be interested in me like that. At least, nothing until last weekend. So, last Friday night, a bunch of us decided to crash at my place after work. It was one of those random get-togethers that starts with, hey, let's grab some pizza and chill, and somehow spirals into everyone staying way too late, drinking cheap beer, and challenging each other to ridiculous games. Ryan was there, of course. He never misses these things. At some point during the night, we were all playing this stupid truth or dare style game, and Ryan, being Ryan, decided to shake things up a bit. When it was my turn, he smirked and said, "All right, Alex, truth or dare?" I went with truth because, honestly, I wasn't about to embarrass myself on camera or whatever. He leaned in with this mischievous grin and asked, "Have you ever thought about kissing me?" Cue the entire room going silent for a second while I tried to laugh it off. I mean, who says yes to that out loud? So I gave him a sarcastic, "Yeah, all the time," even though inside I was like, no, not really, maybe. Sort of. He just raised an eyebrow and said, interesting. Then he joked, "Well, maybe I should just do it and see what happens." Everyone laughed. I laughed too, though my heart was suddenly doing something I hadn't felt in a while. I figured it was just a dumb joke, classic Ryan move. But then, and this is where it gets weird, he actually leaned in before I could even process it and kissed me. Not a quick peck or a cheek thing, but a proper kiss. It lasted a few seconds, and by the time it ended, my whole brain was scrambling to catch up. The room kind of burst back into noise around us, people teasing, and I was left standing there, trying to figure out if that really just happened or if I was dreaming. And honestly, I'm still not sure what to do with it. I stood there for a moment, mouth probably hanging open like a dope, as Ryan pulled back, that same smirk playing on his lips. "Gotcha," he said, like it was some clever prank. The room was buzzing again, people nudging each other, some shouting stupid stuff like, "About time!" or "Finally!" and I felt like a deer caught in headlights. I blinked a few times, trying to make sense of what just happened. Was that really a kiss? Did it mean something? Or was it just Ryan being Ryan, messing around as usual? I looked over at him, waiting for him to crack up and say it was all a joke, but instead, his eyes held this something. Not awkward, not mocking. Just this weird, quiet look that made my stomach twist. What was that? I finally managed, my voice sounding way too shaky for how casual I wanted to seem. Ryan shrugged like it was nothing. Like I said, just wanted to see what happens. "Right," I said, trying to laugh it off like I wasn't suddenly hyper-aware of every single thing about him. His smell, the way his lips moved, the heat from where he'd been pressed against me. The night went on, but something had shifted. I could feel it in the way Ryan kept stealing glances at me when he thought I wasn't looking, and in how my own brain refused to focus on anything except replaying that stupid kiss over and over. I was a mess, honestly. After everyone finally left, Ryan stuck around to help me clean up. We were packing empty bottles and tossing pizza boxes into the trash when he said, "Hey, you okay?" I looked up, half expecting the usual teasing, but instead his expression was softer, a little vulnerable even. Yeah, I lied, trying to sound casual. Just didn't expect that kiss out of nowhere. He laughed quietly, but there was no mockery in it. Yeah, I guess that was kind of bold. Bold is one way to put it. We were standing pretty close, and I suddenly realized how much I wanted to just say something normal, like, "So, what was that about?" But instead, I said, "You never said if you wanted to kiss me, or if it was just a dare." Ryan shrugged again and ran a hand through his messy hair. Honestly? I don't know. Maybe both? I laughed, but there was a nervous edge to it. You're impossible. Maybe. But you're still here, aren't you? That little smile he gave me then. God, it was like a spark. Suddenly, the idea of him not just being this goofy friend, but something more, didn't seem so crazy. The next few days were a blur of trying to act normal while my mind was anything but. At work, I kept catching myself staring off, thinking about Ryan and that kiss and what it might mean. Did he like me? Was I reading too much into a dumb joke? I debated texting him a million times, but chickened out every single time. Finally, on Tuesday, I got a message from him. "Hey, can we talk? I owe you an explanation." My heart did a weird flip. I texted back, "Sure. When? Tonight? I'm free after 7. That night, when he showed up at my door, I could barely keep my cool. He looked different somehow, less the loud jokester, more serious, nervous even. We sat on the couch, this weird tension hanging between us, until Ryan finally broke the silence. "Look, about the kiss. I guess I just wanted to be honest, but I have a bad habit of hiding behind jokes." I nodded, signaling for him to keep going. "I've liked you for a while, yeah. But I wasn't sure if you felt the same, so I thought if I made it a joke, maybe I could test the waters without making everything weird." I blinked, surprised, but also kind of relieved. "You liked me?" "Yeah," he said, looking down for a second before meeting my eyes again. "More than just as a friend." I don't know what I was expecting, but hearing those words out loud made my chest tighten in a good way. "I like you too," I admitted, feeling this weight lift off my shoulders. Ryan smiled, this time without the usual teasing edge. "So what now?" I shrugged, grinning despite myself. "How about we figure it out together?" We laughed, and just like that, the weirdness melted away. The kiss wasn't a joke anymore. It was the start of something neither of us expected, but both of us were willing to explore. And honestly, that's how I ended up here, telling you this story. Still a bit stunned that a stupid joke turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to me. But hey, sometimes the best things come from the least expected moments. So after that night, things started to change between Ryan and me, but not in some dramatic movie-style explosion of feelings. It was subtle, like a slow sunrise, that you almost don't notice until suddenly the whole sky is light and everything looks different. We kept hanging out like usual, but now there were these little moments, longer looks, touches that lingered just a second too long, texts that weren't just about coordinating plans, but about how each other's day was going. It felt kind of terrifying and amazing, all at once. One Thursday, a few days after we'd talked, we ended up at some dive bar downtown with a few other friends. The place was loud, neon lights flickering, and the music was that kind of indie rock that makes you want to pretend you know all the lyrics but mostly just nod your head awkwardly. Ryan sidled up next to me at the bar, elbowing me with a grin. "You know, it's weird seeing you nervous around me now when you used to be the cool one." I rolled my eyes but felt my cheeks heat up. "Yeah, well, don't get used to it." He laughed, and then, without any warning, he grabbed my hand under the table. It was so casual, like it was the most natural thing in the world, yet my heart practically exploded. I looked over, and his eyes were locking onto mine like he was trying to read my thoughts. "Hey," he said softly, "I'm glad you didn't run away after that kiss." I squeezed his hand. "Me too." The rest of the night passed in this bubble, where nothing else really mattered. We flirted shamelessly, but it was easy, no pressure. At one point, Ryan leaned in close and whispered, "So, when's the next kiss happening?" I smirked. "You're really gonna keep bringing that up, huh?" I'm a fan of tradition, We both laughed, but inside I was already imagining a whole new kind of tradition forming between us. The weekend after that, Ryan invited me over to his place for a movie night. I figured it was just friends hanging out, but when I got there, the vibe was different. He'd set up the living room with blankets and pillows, the kind of setup that screamed cozy, and there was this nervous energy in the air I couldn't quite place. We started the movie, but neither of us was really paying attention. At one point, Ryan reached over and put his arm around me, pulling me a little closer. I didn't move away, which was honestly a surprise even to me. Halfway through the film, he paused it and looked down at me, this quiet, serious look replacing his usual grin. "Alex, I know we've been joking and teasing, but I want you to know I'm serious about this," he said. "About us." My heart was pounding so loud I was sure he could hear it. "I am too," I admitted, the words feeling like they'd been locked up inside me forever. He smiled, this time warm and real, and leaned in. Our lips met again, slower and softer than before, like we were both trying to memorize every little thing about each other. When we pulled apart, Ryan rested his forehead against mine and whispered, "I've wanted to do that properly for a while," I chuckled. Me too. That night felt like crossing some invisible line. It wasn't about the kiss anymore. It was about everything that came after. The late night talks about fears and dreams, the silly inside jokes that only we got, the way simply being near him made the noise of the city fade into the background. But, of course, real life has a way of poking its nose in when you least want it to. A couple of weeks later, I found myself at work, trying to focus on a mountain of code, when my phone buzzed with a message from Ryan. "Can we talk? I'm at the coffee shop on 5th. My stomach twisted. The casual text didn't match the nod I was feeling. I grabbed my jacket and headed over. When I got there, Ryan was already sitting at a corner table, looking more serious than I'd ever seen. His usual easy smile was gone, replaced by this tight expression. "Hey," I said, sliding into the seat across from him. "Hey," he said back, running a hand through his hair. "I've been thinking about something, and I don't want to mess this up." I nodded, trying to stay calm. "Okay." He took a deep breath. "My family, they don't really know about me being gay, and, well, with us being together now, I'm kind of scared about how they'll react. I haven't told them yet because I wasn't sure if this was real, but now that it is, I don't know how to deal with it." I felt a rush of protectiveness and frustration. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" He shrugged, looking down. "I guess I was scared. I didn't want to lose what we have." I reached across the table and took his hand again. "Ryan, I'm here. We can figure this out together. You don't have to face this alone." His eyes met mine, full of gratitude and something fragile. "Thanks, Alex. That means a lot." We spent the next hour just talking. No jokes, no teasing, just being real with each other. It was scary admitting all that stuff out loud, but also the first time I truly felt like we were a team. That moment, sitting there with his hand in mine, I realized how much I wanted to be there for him. Not just the fun parts, but all the messy, complicated stuff too. Because, honestly, love isn't about perfect moments or smooth sailing. It's about sticking around when things get real, when the jokes stop, and the truth shows up. And for the first time in a long time, I felt ready for that. So yeah, the kiss that started as a joke turned out to be a lot more than I ever expected. It was the beginning of something messy, beautiful, and completely unexpected. And I'm here for every second of it. After that coffee shop conversation, things between Ryan and me felt more real than ever, but also a little more complicated. I mean, it's one thing to have the butterflies and the easy laughs, and quite another to face the fact that the world outside our little bubble might not be as okay with us as we are with each other. Over the next few days, Ryan was quieter than usual. Not in a bad way, just thoughtful, like he was wrestling with something big inside, and I could tell it was wearing on him. I wanted to help, but it felt like stepping carefully through a minefield, unsure what might set off the next explosion. One evening, about a week after we'd talked at the coffee shop, I was sitting on my couch playing some dumb video game when my phone rang. It was Ryan. "Hey," I said, trying to sound casual even though my heart jumped. "Hey," he answered, voice low. "Can you come over?" I need to talk. I grabbed my jacket and left almost immediately. When I got to his apartment, he was pacing nervously by the window, staring out but not really seeing anything. "What's up?" I asked, sitting down next to him. He sighed, running a hand through his hair. "I told my sister." My stomach clenched. "You did?" "Yeah," he said quietly. "I figured if I was going to tell anyone, she'd be the one. She's usually pretty chill." I waited, but he didn't say anything else. "So," I prompted gently. Ryan looked at me, eyes a little glassy. "It didn't go great. She's supportive, but she said I should be careful. Told me not to expect everyone to react like she did, which, it kind of scared me. I reached out and touched his arm. "That please, Mess. But it's good you told her. One step at a time." He nodded, but still looked shaken. "Yeah, but it made me wonder if I'm ready for this with my parents. They're different." I swallowed hard, knowing exactly what he meant. Ryan's family was more traditional and, honestly, pretty strict. I'd met his parents a couple of times at work events, and yeah, it was clear they had some old school ideas. "Do you want me to come with you when you tell them?" I asked, surprising even myself with how quickly the words came out. Ryan looked at me like I'd just offered to climb Everest with him. Then he smiled. Small but real. I'd like that. That night, we started talking about how and when he might bring it up to his parents. We made plans, but mostly it was just a way to feel like we were tackling the problem together. The following weekend, Ryan called me early Saturday morning. "Hey, I'm heading to see my parents today," he said, voice tense. "I'm scared as hell, but I think it's time." "Do you want me to come?" I asked immediately. He paused. "I don't know. Maybe. If you're free." "I'm free," I said without hesitation. We agreed I'd meet him at his parents' place later that afternoon. When I got there, Ryan was pacing again, clearly nervous. His hands were shaking slightly as he unlocked the door. His parents greeted us with their usual polite smiles, but I could tell Ryan's dad was sizing me up in that way only dads do, when they don't quite know what to make of the situation. After some small talk, Ryan sat down, took a deep breath, and looked his parents in the eyes. "There's something I need to tell you," he said, voice shaking a little. "Alex and I, we're together." The room went dead silent. His mom blinked and his dad cleared his throat. "Well," his dad said slowly, "I'm surprised, but you're our son, and we want you to be happy." Relief flooded Ryan's face. But then his mom said, "It'll take some time to get used to, but we love you." Ryan looked at me and I could see the tears threatening to spill over. After the visit, we walked back to my place in a kind of daze. "That wasn't as bad as I thought," Ryan admitted. "See? Told you we could do it," I said, grinning. He pulled me into a hug, and honestly, I think I smiled harder than I had in weeks. Over the next few weeks, things with Ryan's family started to settle. There were awkward conversations and some unspoken tension, but also moments of genuine acceptance that felt like tiny victories. Meanwhile, our relationship kept growing. We shared mornings over coffee, lazy weekends, binging shows, and the kind of deep talks that make you realize you've found someone who really gets you. One night, sitting together on my balcony, the city lights stretching out below us, Ryan turned to me and said, "You made me brave." I smiled, heartful. "You made me brave too." We kissed then, slow and sure, not a joke this time, but the real thing. And honestly, I'm still not sure how it all happened, from a dumb joke to something real, messy, and beautiful, but I'm grateful every day that it did. Because sometimes, the best things come when you least expect them, and sometimes, all it takes is one brave moment to change everything. After that night on the balcony, I thought things would just keep rolling along, steady and sure. But, of course, real life isn't that predictable. It has this hilarious way of reminding you that even when you're finally feeling like you've got a grip on things, there's always some curveball waiting. A couple of weeks later, Ryan and I decided to take a little trip out of the city. Nothing fancy, just a weekend getaway to a cabin his family owned about 2 hours away. I hadn't met anyone else from his family besides his parents and sister, so it felt like a good chance to get to know them better. And honestly, I was hoping it'd be a chance to escape the constant hum of city life for a bit. The drive out was fun, with Ryan playing his usual mix of terrible 90s rock and indie pop, and me laughing way too hard at his over-the-top air guitar moves in the passenger seat. It felt easy, like the first real break from the awkwardness that had filled our days recently. When we arrived, the cabin was kind of rustic but cozy, plenty of wood paneling, and this big stone fireplace that looked like it hadn't been cleaned in years. Ryan's sister Mia met us there, and I could tell right away she was a little skeptical of me, but she was polite enough. The three of us unpacked our stuff and settled in, a kind of silence between us that wasn't uncomfortable, but definitely charged. That night, after a simple dinner of takeout and some awkward small talk, Ryan and I found ourselves curled up on the couch near the fireplace. The flames cast a warm glow over everything, and for the first time in a while, I felt completely relaxed. Ryan looked over at me, this soft smile tugging at his lips. "You're really different around my family." I raised an eyebrow. Different how? More yourself, less guarded. I thought about that for a second. Maybe because I want them to like you. And if they like you, then maybe they'll like me too. He laughed quietly, shaking his head. That's the sweet version. The honest one is you're slowly becoming part of my life, and that scares the hell out of me. I reached out and took his hand. I get that. I'm scared too. There was a pause, the fire crackling filling the space between us, and then Ryan leaned in and kissed me. This time it was gentle but deliberate, like he was saying without words that he was here, fully and completely. The rest of the weekend was a mix of quiet moments and surprising conversations. Mia opened up a little more, sharing stories about growing up with Ryan, and even cracking a few jokes at his expense. It felt like the first time I was seeing this whole other side of him. One that wasn't just the funny guy or the nervous boyfriend, but someone with a family, history, and people who mattered. On the drive back to the city, Ryan reached over and squeezed my hand. "Thanks for coming with me. It wasn't easy," I smiled. "Where you go, I go. Plus, you owe me for all that terrible music." He laughed, and in that moment, I realized how much I wanted this, to be the person who stood by his side, no matter how messy or complicated things got. But then, a few days later, reality hit again. I was at work, buried under a pile of emails and coding headaches, when Ryan sent me a text that made my stomach drop. "Can we talk? It's important." My mind immediately jumped to all the worst-case scenarios. Was he having doubts? Was someone giving him a hard time? I tried calling, but he didn't pick up, so I sent a message asking if he wanted to meet up after work. He replied quickly, "Yeah, 7 at the park near my place." When I got there, he was already sitting on a bench, looking tense. I sat down beside him, and for a moment, neither of us said anything. Finally, Ryan took a deep breath. "My parents called me today. They're worried." "Worried about what?" I asked. He fiddled with the sleeve of his jacket. "They've heard some things from family friends about us. They think maybe this isn't just a phase." I swallowed hard, feeling my chest tighten. "What did you say?" "I told them to trust me, that I'm happy. But they want me to be careful, you know? Like it's some kind of mistake I can fix if I just try hard enough." I felt a mix of anger and sadness boil up. "That's bullshit." Ryan looked at me, eyes tired but determined. "Yeah, but it's not just about me. It's about them and their fears and everything they've been taught. I want to stand up to it, but sometimes it feels like I'm fighting alone." I reached over and took his hand. "You're not alone. I'm here. Always." He smiled, a little shaky, but real. "I don't know what I did to deserve you." "Probably annoyed the hell out of you until you gave in," I joked, trying to lighten the mood. He laughed, and we sat there for a while, just holding on to each other as the sun dipped below the horizon. In that moment, I realized something important. Love isn't always about grand gestures or fireworks. Sometimes, it's about showing up, day after day, especially when the world feels like it's pushing back. And with Ryan, I wanted to show up. Every messy, complicated, beautiful moment of it. The days that followed our talk in the park felt like walking a tightrope without a safety net. Ryan's parents were still worried, and I could see it wearing him down. He wasn't the same goofy guy always cracking jokes and pushing me to dance in the middle of the office party. He was quieter, more pensive, like carrying a weight that wasn't just his own. One evening, a few nights after that conversation, I went over to Ryan's place. He had texted me earlier, something along the lines of, "Can you come? Need your brain and your company." When I got there, he was sitting at the kitchen table with a half-empty notebook and a pen. The room was dimly lit, and his usual energy was replaced by this intensity that made my chest tighten. "Hey," I said softly, setting my bag down. "Hey," he murmured back, eyes flickering up to meet mine before returning to the notebook. "What's all this?" I asked, nodding toward the pages. He sighed and closed the notebook carefully. "I've been writing down things I want to say to my parents, like trying to find the right words." "You're gonna talk to them again?" "Yeah, I think I need to, but I'm scared it won't change anything." I pulled up a chair and sat down beside him. "Want to practice? I can be your audience." He gave me a small, grateful smile. "Would you?" We spent the next hour going over what he wanted to say, sometimes reading aloud, sometimes tweaking sentences. It wasn't just about coming out again. It was about standing firm in who he was and asking for acceptance. At one point, Ryan paused and looked at me. "You know, you make me braver. Like, I wouldn't even be doing this if you hadn't been there." I squeezed his hand. "You're the brave one. I'm just lucky to be on your team." Later that week, Ryan invited me to a dinner at his place with his parents. He decided it was time for an honest conversation, and I was going to be there, front and center. The night of the dinner, I tried to keep calm, but my nerves were doing their own wild dance. When I arrived, Ryan greeted me with a nervous grin and a quick kiss. "Thanks for being here," he whispered. His parents were waiting in the dining room, trying their best to seem relaxed, but with that underlying tension you get when the air is thick with unspoken worries. We sat down, and Ryan took a deep breath. "Mom, Dad, I want to talk about us. About Alex and me." His dad nodded slowly, and his mom looked at him expectantly. "I know this isn't easy for you," Ryan continued, "and I get that it's different from what you imagined. But I'm asking you to try to see me, the real me. I'm happier than I've ever been, and Alex is a big part of that." There was silence for a moment. Then his mom spoke softly. "We want you to be happy, Ryan. We're just scared for you." Ryan's dad sighed. "It's going to take time for us to understand this, but we're willing to try." Relief flooded the room, and I could see Ryan visibly relax. After dinner, we all sat together in the living room, sharing stories and laughs, the tension slowly melting away. Walking Ryan to my place later that night, I felt lighter than I had in weeks. He reached for my hand, and I intertwined my fingers with his. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for sticking around." I smiled. There's nowhere else I'd rather be. Over the next few months, things with Ryan's family improved. They asked questions, made efforts, and even started inviting me to family gatherings. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. Meanwhile, Ryan and I kept building our relationship, slowly, carefully, with the kind of trust that comes from weathering storms together. One lazy Sunday, as we were making breakfast, Ryan looked over at me and said, "You know, I never thought a stupid joke would lead to all this." I laughed, flipping a pancake. "Yeah, who knew a dare would turn into the best thing that's ever happened to me?" He grinned and pulled me in for a kiss. "Me too." And honestly, that's what it's been. Unexpected, messy, sometimes scary, but always worth it. Because sometimes love sneaks up on you disguised as a joke, and if you're lucky, you don't run away. You lean in, take the risk, and find something real. It's funny how life works sometimes. That dumb joke Ryan made, the one about kissing me, felt like such a small moment at first. But looking back, it was the start of something I never saw coming. Something that challenged me, scared me, and ultimately changed me in ways I didn't expect. Now sitting here with Ryan beside me, the city lights flickering through the window, I feel this quiet sort of peace. We've come a long way from those nervous early days, laughing off a kiss like it was nothing, then tiptoeing around feelings we barely understood. We faced hard conversations, doubts, and the slow dance of getting a family to understand. And through it all, we stayed. We showed up. Last weekend, we went hiking just outside the city. Nothing fancy, Just two dudes and a trail surrounded by trees and fresh air. At the top, with this breathtaking view stretching out below us, Ryan took my hand and said, "I never thought I'd be this lucky." I smiled, squeezing his fingers. "Neither did I." He turned to me, eyes bright. "Thanks for not running when things got messy. For being patient. For being you." I felt a lump in my throat, realizing that this, him, us, was exactly where I wanted to be. Not perfect, not easy, but real. We didn't need grand declarations or elaborate plans, just the simple understanding that we were in this together. That whatever came next, we'd face it side by side. That's love, I think. Not the fireworks or the big moments, but the quiet knowing that you have someone who sees you and chooses you every day. So here we are, two imperfect guys making it work, one kiss at a time. And honestly, that's more than enough for me.